I'd like to talk just briefly about this aspect of grazing. Now you've seen that I've laid out this field with these grazing strips in between the planting strips. And I mostly have in mind there to have small animals, most likely the meat chickens or broilers in pens. The reason so that they won't disturb our plants. But they will help build the soil by fertilizing it as we move them throughout that strip. But let me talk about grazing in general. And I'm really thinking that a good approach to our PTP Kenya farming to help our training of pastures is to possibly have one field, say 1 acre, that would be used with just grazing 1 year, and then the other field, 1 acre perhaps, where we have crops, and we have them in the manner that I've done. So we could have the crops integrated with chickens. But in the field that say is 1 acre, or whatever it might be, is that there are some things to consider in how to graze, so again that we're building the soil in the best way. Okay, so now we're dealing with grasses and so forth that you'll have in a field. And the principle again is that we want that grass or those the broadleaf plants and all that you find in the field, we want them to be able to grow up and be healthy before we graze that area. And so what those plants need is to take the sunlight, they take the carbon dioxide that's in the air because of that's given off by plants, by us, and those plants will use that in order to do photosynthesis and, as I said, create this simple sugar. And in sugar is a carbon, there's several carbon molecules, and so that's the whole exchange system, if you will. Instead of the Kenyan shilling, the plants and organisms use carbon as their exchange mode. And so that's why the plants need to have a lot of the sugars they're giving off in their roots in order for the microbes to do their job to help the grass grow well. So it's working together in this way. Now, in grazing, you want to have, there's 3 phases that grass or plants go through in their growth. And they often talk about in an S curve they use. So this bottom portion of the S curve is phase 1, and that's sometimes called the infant stage. And you know what it's like. You plant your maize and you wait for a while and you see just a little shoot coming up, one little, and it takes quite a while for it then to make much height because it's working on establishing roots. So that's the infant stage, establishing those roots and getting it based. Then you come up to this other portion, middle portion of the curves of the S, where there's a lot of growth. And I've been seeing that in the corn, the maize these last weeks. It's gone from maybe 30 centimeters, and over several weeks it just is climbing up to being over 2 meters tall. So in that with grass it does a similar progression. It takes a while to get going, but then once it gets going, it goes fast, and it may go from 3 or 4 centimeters, then it may boom up to say 20. You'd want 20, 25, 30 centimeters high. Now, in that stage, that's when we want to then come in and graze it. But the ideal, because this middle portion of the S curve, we could call it the adolescent, when young kids and young boys are out, lots of energy and grow fast. In that section, we want to graze the top half of that middle section. So we graze it down for a short period of time. It's got a lot of energy in it for the animals, but then we get them off that section so that it can keep growing up fast again. And we don't want to let it go too long because then it gets into the old age of plant life where it slows down and it loses some of its nutritious value. So the way we end up being able to utilize this S curve, and particularly the top middle section of it, is to rope off different sections or somehow put them in different sections of the overall field. Put them there, the animals, 2 or 3, maybe you have 2 cows, you put it in a section that's just large enough for the cows for one day. And then you move them to an adjacent, just next to that area, and let that first area rest. And so you can divide that whole acre perhaps in, maybe 15 or 20 smaller portions that are just day portions. But you want them to go there because then as they move around in those sections, they'll be properly cutting the grass down as they eat it. But as they leave the other alone, then it'll grow back again. Okay, so that's the way we do our rotational grazing in this managed way, so that we help, again, we're trying to keep our soil, building the soil, providing for us healthy and nutritious grasses for our animals to be able to graze on.